China has moved Army, naval, and Air Force units into positions around Taiwan for what it says are military exercises. Taiwan has responded by mobilizing its own forces, saying that it will defend democracy. The drills come 11 days after the United States announced an $11 billion arms package for Taipei, one of its largest ever weapons sales to the self-governing island. Beijing strongly criticized the deal and warned that it would respond with what it called forceful measures.
Regarding the Chinese military exercises, the Ministry of Transportation wants to express its position. We strongly protest and condemn their arrogant and unreasonable actions, which will inevitably affect the safety of our air and sea transportation.
That recent arms deal in more detail between the U.S. and Taiwan. It was a decision made by the Trump administration and Taiwan, and it was worth approximately $11 billion. The agreement includes 82 high-mobility artillery rocket systems. They're known as HIMARS. These launchers can fire multiple precision-guided missiles. A total of 420 Army tactical missile systems will be part of the deal. These surface-to-surface long-range guided missiles have a range of up to 300 kilometers. The package also includes 60 mobile artillery vehicles, plus sophisticated anti-tank and anti-shipping missiles. Now, this could be the second largest military sale to Taiwan after the nearly $16 billion agreement during former President George W. Bush's term in 2001. Now, Wen-Ti Sung is a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub. You're joining us from Taiwan's capital, Taipei. It's good to have you on the program. What's your read on this, on what's happening today, China deciding to announce these large-scale military drills just after the U.S. promised $11 billion of military hardware to Taiwan?
Yeah, internationally, obviously, send a signal to U.S. for sure as a protest against American sale, one of the bigger sales so far, arms sales to Taiwan. So that's meant to police this taboo that China would not be happy with anyone trying to help Taiwan strengthen its defenses. The same thing you saw really in the almost 2 month long quarrel now between China and Japan, when Japan Prime Minister said something about how in a Taiwan contingency, Japan might be involved. You see Beijing giving Japan a lot of difficulty in recent months for sure. So I think that's the international part of the equation. If you look at the domestic part of the equation, there's something to be said about China's own domestic military purges as well. We know that China's defense minister, Li Shangfu, for example, was taken down 2 years ago. And really, after 2 long years of military purges in the top rank of the PLA, about a week ago, finally, they had the first ceremony this year, the first ceremony to promote 4-star generals for the Chinese military. You expect 20 4-star generals to be present. Only 4 of them were actually present, meaning the remaining 16, that is about 80% of the 4-star generals, were missing from that big occasion.
What does that mean?
That
what do you
tells
read
you
into
about
that?
a state of purge. Yeah, so that tells you about the state of military instability inside military ranks. And that ceremony was about Xi Jinping trying to appoint people to fill the seat for theater commanders, a seat for the chiefs and political commissar of various military services. So finally, China has a functional chain of command back now in its military. And one of the first things you do when you finally have a new chain of command is to exercise it so everybody knows where they fall in the occasion. In a hierarchy rather. And so I think this military drill come at a time when Xi Jinping need to both internationally send a signal against U.S. arms sales and domestically to establish military chain of command and to use this high-profile military exercise to drive home that point in a very visual manner.
It sounds like you're saying that to some extent, with China having consolidated its military and changed some of the faces and the names within the upper echelons of its military, then they were also keen after that was completed to get them all working on the same thing, one of their priorities being Taiwan.
For sure, indeed. I mean, Taiwan has always been the crown jewel for any China's military expansionist project around the region and beyond. And so for sure. And also, of course, we know China has always framed Taiwan as primarily a domestic issue. So in that sense, China finds Taiwan to be a politically expedient punching bag for that purpose. And if you really look into how China goes about framing this military exercise, though, you can see that China still somehow tried to mitigate the degree of international impact and negative perception. So if you look at the Eastern Theater Command's announcement about its military drill, they said they designate fire drill areas, but they don't say other countries' airships and ships are banned from entering. They said they are advised against entering those areas. This is a somewhat softer language. And China is rarely soft when it comes to anything Taiwan or sovereignty claim related. So this, you see China is using it for international messaging and domestic purposes, but it's trying to mitigate negative perception by third party to the extent possible here.
And
so it's a calibrated move.
Okay. Do you see anything really new in this kind of tit for tat that we're seeing? Because China, as a rule, never lets any sort of military movement from Taiwan or any move towards further independence or any big statement, even from Taiwan, really go unmatched and unaddressed. So people who watch this kind of knew that once the U.S. announced $11 billion of arms sales to Taiwan, China would have to respond in some fashion.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit pro forma by this point. Like every time China sees a movement from U.S., Japan, and other international friends and partner of Taiwan that Beijing doesn't like, China will feel like it needs to check the box and to show that it establishes this precedent that Beijing will always respond forcefully at anything it doesn't like when it comes to Taiwan and sovereignty claims. So in that sense, not new. What may be new on the more operational level, however, is the kind of mission that will be involved. So the code name this time around is called in Chinese 正义使命, which I think in English would translate into something like Mission Justice 2025, something to that effect. That tells you that there will be a significant element of law enforcement involved in addition to just POA and military maneuvers. So I can see how this round of military drill will be about PLA practicing quarantine and maritime interception operation that China may one day think it might need to use in cross-strait contingency issues when it comes to stopping and embargoing Taiwan and stopping international support and supply going into Taiwan. So these are things to watch out for, I think, operationally.
Okay, Wen-Ti Sung of the Atlantic Council, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.